Well, hey everybody, Mike Griffith here. Welcome to Friday Night Mike. And wow, what a week. What a week. Every time we say it can't get any stranger, it just keeps getting stranger. And Jamie Newman, hello Newman, goodbye Newman. It all happened so fast. Look at that. I don't know who's first, but expecting a really big Friday night. High school football back in the state of Georgia. Make a camera adjustment here. Like to be a little bit closer to the center of the screen. There we go. Big games all over the state. I know Jeff Sentel tonight checking out the Brock Vandergrift game right up the road there in Bogart. So Georgia fans probably going to check that out. Jeff's going to be around. Hope Jeff can come by a little bit later and give us an update on what's going on. I think it's good news for Brock Vandergrift. Have not checked in. Have not done any shares. So now's the time to share this on your feed. Get this out. Get everybody rocking and rolling. So where do we start? Well, we got to start with the quarterback situation in Georgia. Look, here's what's going on. The red flag was when JT Daniels chose Georgia and Georgia chose JT Daniels. We all looked at it and we said, something doesn't look right here. Why is this happening? Why would JT Daniels feel comfortable coming to Georgia when he could go to Michigan, Tennessee, play right away at either one of those schools, win those jobs? LSU was interested in him, Washington. I mean, think about this. The guy can go anywhere in the country. He's a 5-star. JT Daniels is an NFL quarterback. He is an NFL skill set. He has a big arm. He has a bigger, stronger arm than Fromm. He has more ability, even once with the knee brace. I mean, this is a great athlete. This guy is big time. And why does he choose Georgia if Jamie Newman's the guy? Well, the answer was Jamie Newman wasn't the guy. Jamie Newman had not won the job. And, Kirby told us that. Kirby told us all along, don't know what I got at quarterback. And Kirby meant it. So it's one of those COVID-19 deals. In a regular year, Newman probably cements himself, goes through spring, learns the system, gets those reps, gets those snaps, and is comfortable in the offense. And then when May comes, JT Daniels isn't looking at Georgia. But because of COVID-19, because Jamie Newman didn't get that work, he wasn't that far ahead. In fact, he wasn't ahead at all. The air raid system, and I need to make this clear because I've read, there's so much stuff out there of people that just, they don't understand. Number one, experience is so important when it comes to football and when it comes to running an offense, especially when we're talking about a pro-style offense. It's the quarterback being able to manage the line of scrimmage. It sounds so easy. Oh, he's just a game manager. Well, it's not easy to be just a game manager. Some people will never be game managers. Some people can't do it. It's called football IQ. It has nothing to do with what kind of grade you get on your report card. It's called football IQ. It's a very common term. And it has to do with the player's ability to recognize concepts, to retain information, to get through progressions quickly. It takes a certain mind to be able to do that. We see that in athletics, right? You think about what it takes for great athletes to make those split-second decisions on the basketball court. Think about that as a point guard. Like, you have to be able to process so much information in basketball as a point guard. Earvin Magic Johnson has an incredible basketball IQ, for those of you that remember Magic. The passes, the timing. Think about the processing that has to go through a point guard's mind to put that pass between those guys' legs, to lead that guy, to have that court vision. It's kind of like that with football. You've got to be able to process. You've got to be able to get through progressions. You've got to have vision. In football, what you add to that is rules. So the offensive coordinator says, if we see A, X, Z, Y, you have to do 3, 5, 7, 1. There's a prescribed way to deal with every situation in football that you go over with your coordinator. It's designed that way. The first progression, the second progression, the third progression. If they show you this front, you audible to this protection, okay? There's a lot to that. And what Georgia wants to do is what a lot of what a lot of coordinators want to do. They want the quarterback to be able to manage and make those decisions. right? So when they do that one clap, you see that, right? One clap. The defense reacts. The quarterbacks that aren't managing look to the sideline, right? Because they go, okay, one clap. We see what the defense is doing, one clap. Okay, coach telling me, what do I do now? Coach tells them what to do. Offense adjusts. Defense adjusts. But if you have the quarterback that can fly the jet, as I say, and that's not my term, Steve Clarkson, okay, there's some great quarterback coaches out there that talk about flying the jet. Means that the quarterback, when he sees the defense, if he likes what he's got, then one clap is go. Because we got you. We got what we want here. If he doesn't like what he sees, the quarterback can make the check without looking to the sideline, which means the defense doesn't have time to adjust. It's the way that the offense stays one step ahead. Why would Kirby Smart want that? Well, because Kirby Smart's a defensive coordinator. And he knows what drives him nuts is when there's a quarterback on the other side of the ball that can make that read and take advantage of his defense, right? So what we're talking about here is air raid offense, okay? Air raid offense is spreading the field, 3 receiver set, 1 tight end, 1 back, shotgun. And it's spreading the field, creating matchups. Most important thing, whether you're running or passing, as Todd Monken said, is to get the defense in a run-pass conflict, which means the defense doesn't know if you're going to run or pass by the down and distance situation. So if it's 2nd and 10, we pretty much know it's going to be a throw, right? But if it's 2nd and 5, the defense isn't sure what to do. If it's 3rd and 8, we know it's probably a pass. If it's 3rd and 3, we're not so sure. So the whole key is to stay ahead of the chains, and that enables you to make big plays. That's the number one thing. The number two thing is getting the ball out in space, right? And that is per Todd Monken, all right? That is out of the book of Monken. That is out of his press conference. So, dialing it back here, why did Jamie Newman leave? Well, Jamie, COVID-19. Well, this is true. COVID-19 is a factor. And as I said earlier, is the juice worth the squeeze? And COVID-19 protocol is not fun, all right? It's not fun being quarantined at 19, 20, 21, and 22 when all your friends are out and you can't go out and see them. You have to stay quarantined. You have to stay around other players. That's why the whole idea, the bubble for college football, we said it's never going to work. These are college kids, right? They're young. They want to socialize. They want to be around others, okay? That's not fun. Now, the Georgia guys have done a good job of that. You've seen around the country, a lot of programs have players that are doing a very good job with this because they want there to be a season. Jamie Newman's a 22-year-old man. So if you're going to lock him up and quarantine him, then it's got to be worth it, all right? Number one. Number two, if the competition is ongoing, which it is, Todd Monken said last week, what do you think of the competition? It's open. What Kirby Smart said last Saturday, nobody's making separation. Got to see what JT Daniels gets healthy. Kirby told you right there. So now you're Newman. You've been on campus 7 months, and nobody's telling you it's your job. In fact, this new guy from Southern Cal showed up, and you're wondering, why'd this new guy show up? Is this a sign? Yes, it is a sign. So why am I staying here if I don't even know that I'm the guy? And I'm never going to know I'm the guy, by the way, because Kirby Smart doesn't announce starters. He didn't announce a starter when it was Fromm and Fields. There was never any depth chart. We didn't know till they took the first snap. And then Kirby said they're going to compete every week. So if you're Jamie Newman, at some point you go, you know what? I made a business decision to come to Georgia to improve my draft stock. I stayed, I studied, I did what I could do. There's a guy from USC on campus that could take my job. I'm going to make a business decision for myself, and I'm going to go train for the NFL. Because if I stay at Georgia, I got to deal with COVID-19 because Athens is still hot, right? You're in a college campus environment. There's a chance you can get COVID-19. So if I stay here, I got to quarantine 1. 2, I've got competition. I could lose this job at any. I don't know who's going to start. Maybe I'm the guy. Maybe I'm not the guy. A lot of it. So don't know that I'm the guy. 3, even if Jamie does stay and play this season, remember he had that foot sprain in the offseason in the month of July that Kirby Smart told us about. Maybe Jamie says, you know what? Maybe I don't want to risk getting hurt again. Last year, Jamie Newman had a shoulder injury, forced him to miss the Florida State game. So you put all those things together, and he says, I got to make a business decision. So Georgia fans shouldn't be mad at Jamie Newman. for making a business decision. Because Georgia took JT Daniels and made a business decision, right? So to me, I thought that the best case scenario was the way Jamie handled it. First class, the way Jamie handled it. Put out a press release, said his time was brief, that he enjoyed it. Kirby Smart, in turn, put out a press release. You didn't see Kirby put out a press release when these other guys transferred. I thought it was first class. I thought it was handled by both parties. So now you're saying, well, what does this mean for Georgia? Well, you lose a 6'4", 230-pound guy with a big arm and tremendous athleticism. No, that doesn't help you. You know, it's unfortunate that Jamie and Todd Monken didn't sync up, that it didn't seem to be working out to the extent that another player was brought in. But the fact of the matter is you have an NFL prototype quarterback here. Now, where does JT Daniels go from here? He's not 100% cleared. Can he stay healthy through a 10-game season? And if he doesn't, you have very inexperienced players behind him. The good news, the silver lining, as we go back and forth on this, is that had Jamie Newman not left, somebody else probably would have. Would it have been Dwan Mathis, frustrated that it was looking like he was only going to get red zone snaps? Or would it have been Carson Beck, who may not have been on the bus for the first trip? One of them would have left, I believe. Now, I think Beck and Mathis, both on board. I think some air comes out of the room. I think there was a lot of pressure in that room. Listen, there's still competition, but it's not going to be like it was. And I think there's going to be a different feel now with 3 quarters. It's a manageable situation, more manageable than 4. Again, it's not a good deal. You didn't want to see Jamie Newman leave, but I respect Jamie Newman's decision. Again, the situation changed. When he came here, there was no JT Daniels. Now, JT Daniels, now he looks like the guy. Why? Because he's got experience. Again, remember at the start of the show, I talked about how important the experience was. You want a quarterback out there that can run your system, that can distribute the ball. The key here is ball distribution. You got to be able to get the ball to George Pickens. You got to get the ball to James Cook. You got to get the ball in space to Jermaine Burton. You got to be able to get the ball to Trey McKitty. You got to identify the matchup and have a pretty good idea of who's going to be open before the ball's even snapped. You got to have a pretty good idea on where the pressure is coming from and be able to set up that protection. I remember asking Jake Fromm at the Combine, Jake, what do you say to the people that say that you don't have very good mobility and you can't get out of trouble with your legs? His answer was, I get out of trouble before I get into trouble by reading the defense and making the correct adjustments. There's a lot to be said for that. Also, preservation. You know, JT Daniels is going to have to get rid of the ball quickly. This is not a guy that's going to make it through 10-game SEC season taking hits. Jamie Newman was much stronger and more durable. Now, Jamie was also more apt to run and try to run people over. Jamie would have taken some hits downfield with his running style. You go back and look, the guy had 180 carries last year. I want to say 128 or 129 of those were actually called. That means that on 52 occasions, Jamie was doing it on his own because he's such an incredible competitor. Again, people have to understand it's okay to like Jamie Newman and JT Daniels and Dwan Mathis and Carson Beck. You can like all of them. You don't have to. You can have your favorite, but just because you like Dwan or just because you like Carson or just because you like JT doesn't mean you need to rip the other guy and look for reasons to get down on him and say what he can't do. And I'm seeing too much division in the Georgia fan base. And again, I'm not lecturing anybody in specifically, but I'm going to tell you, social media has been ugly. And it doesn't need to be that way in the Georgia fan base, okay? It's not that way on the team. Do you know who's hanging out tomorrow? JT Daniels' dad and Dwan Mathis' dad, okay? This is a team that Kirby Smart has here. There is unity in that clubhouse. There's not division. So the fan base doesn't need to fight and complain at one another and turn this into something other than just football. This is a football situation. That's all it is. It's a big-time business. And when you're Georgia and you recruit 4-star and 5-star and stack one right on top of the other, there's going to be situations where some guys are going to look at their playing situation and go, this doesn't work for me. Otis Reese left. You know, Lewis Seen stepped up, had a great performance in the Sugar Bowl. Tyreek Stevenson, 4-star from South Florida. And Reese looks around and says, you know what? This doesn't work for me. Devod Wilson's got some issues at home, right? If Devod's going to stay at Georgia, the juice has got to be worth the squeeze. He looks around. He says, you know what? There's things close to home I want to take care of. You know, maybe he's not the starter. Devod Wilson, see, I'm in Central Florida. You know, this is part of the business. But when fans start talking about, oh, this is what's happening, you don't know. You don't know. And I don't know beyond what Kirby tells me and what I'm told from people that are at the scrimmages, right? I discern my information through sources that go to the games, the scrimmages, that talk to people in the locker room. And through my 30 years of covering sports and college football, you kind of get a read and a feel for these sort of things. Not always right. Shoot, I've been wrong before. I mean, certainly not perfect. I didn't think Justin Fields was going to transfer. I thought Justin was going to stay and compete with Jake, and it was going to be like a 2-quarterback system in 2019. I should have known that he was too talented and that another program was going to come up and build an offense around him. And that's what Ohio State did, and they had incredible results. And Justin's probably cemented himself as a top 5 draft pick because of what he did in the Ohio State offense. But not one size doesn't fit all. And Georgia's offense was different than Ohio State's offense, was different than Florida's offense. And all you got to do is look at the all-time leading passers in SEC history. And I believe it's Aaron Murray, number 1, right? And then isn't David Green and Chris Leak like 2 and 3, right? So what did Aaron Murray, Chris Leak, or David Green do in the NFL? Now, I'm not ripping those dogs, and I'm not ripping Chris Leak, but it's evidence that one system does not always translate to another. Danny Werfel, 2 Heisman trophies at Florida, did nothing in the NFL. Why? Because the system that Florida ran did not adequately prepare quarterbacks for the NFL. How do I know this? I interviewed Doug Johnson when he played for the Falcons after a game. I can't remember what year it was. You Georgia fans can remember Doug Johnson's tenure. And I said, what was it like playing for Steve Spurrier, and how did it prepare you for the NFL? And he said something to the effect of, it didn't prepare me for the NFL. It was horrible. And I said, why? And Doug Johnson said, because when you played for Spurrier, you looked at, now this is where it gets ingenious, and I don't know if you all know this about the fun and gun. Remember the fun and gun offense that Spurrier just destroyed the SEC with in the 1990s? So I covered Tennessee during that era, and I remember talking to John Chavis about it, the defensive coordinator. And what John told me was that Spurrier's offense and patterns, on every route, there was a short route, an intermediate route, and a long route. So they were going to stretch a defense out vertically. And I thought that was pretty cool. What Doug Johnson told me was even more fascinating. When the Florida quarterbacks would look to the sideline, Steve Spurrier would make the read of the defense, and he would indicate whether they were going to read the left side of the field or the right side of the field. The Florida quarterbacks in the 1990s were only reading half of the field. So when we talked earlier about getting through your progressions, they didn't have to scan the entire field. They only had to read half of it. Very much simplified reads. That was part of the reason why Florida was so efficient. The other reason was the speed, right? You can have the X where the O is, but if your guy can't catch him or tackle him, doesn't matter how well you scheme him up. So those two things, Florida had a very efficient system and a simplified system. You're seeing that now in other offenses. Spread the field, find the matchup, quarterback looks to the sideline, knows the read, okay? And if you've got players that can get open and that you can't cover, then it doesn't matter what the defense does. You can have the guy, we saw that with Georgia last year. J.R. Reed was right where he needed to be to intercept a pass on LSU's opening drive. And what happened? The ball went right by his ear hole, touchdown. Conversely, on the first offensive play of the game, Tyler Simmons is open downfield. Jake hits him with a pass. Tyler Simmons drops it. Would have been a 65-yard touchdown. So there's an element of execution. Schemes are important. Not going to tell you they're not. But at the end of the day, you got to have players. So now, getting back to Georgia's offense and where it's at. Air raid offense. Clearly, they want a point guard, right? JT Daniels first in line for that. Experience. 1 full season under his belt. Some really good games. Some not so good games. A second season of mental reps. Everybody goes, well, what's that? It means he's plugged into the game plan every single week, and he's taking reps without being on the field, right? So he's had 2 years, essentially, within the huddle, so to speak. Dwan last year was recovering from brain surgery and really wasn't in the huddle. When Dwan came back to practice, it was November, and he was running scout team. And he was doing everything he could. It was a miraculous recovery, but he wasn't in the huddle per se. Now, he did get some bowl reps, but like Jamie Newman, he had springtime taken away from him. Same thing, Carson's an early enrollee. Neither one of these guys have been in the huddle, whereas JT's been in the huddle 2 years. So there's a sizable difference in experience and what you can expect these quarterbacks to absorb with their football IQ from the playbook. And that's just a fact. Now, if you had some incredible, guy that had run pro style in high school for 3 years, it's a different, but that's not where Georgia is, okay? It's a brand new offense, it's brand new terminology, and it's going to take the young guys, it's going to take Carson and Dwan time to learn. So my question, there's 3 questions that I'm going to have about the scrimmage tomorrow. Number one, what does the offense look like now? I'm guessing that it looks the same, right? I'm guessing JT, I think all 3 of those guys are going to get first-team reps. I think Stetson Bennett is a guy that can run the offense. We know that Stetson, though, just lacks the physical attributes. He's not 6 feet tall. He doesn't have the strongest arm. But he's capable, okay? Stetson Bennett is a capable quarterback. If they played tomorrow, he would probably be the number 2 because of his ability to run the offense, having all the experience of being in the huddle, right? Now, long-term, of course not. They're going to find out what can Dwan and what can Carson do, because you better have a plan B. If something happens to JT Daniels, whether that knee doesn't get all the way back, I think he's close now, he's been repping, he's been going through scrimmages, but if something happens to JT Daniels, you better know, and you better have Carson and Dwan ready to go, and you better have an offense prepared for them, right? So maybe the thought was you got a package for Dwan. I wonder if that goes out the window now, and now you've got an offense for Dwan and an offense from Carson. Maybe you shrink the playbook down a little bit. You give these guys plays that they can handle early on. Their knowledge will grow with experience. They're going to get better every single practice now that you're in pads. But you've only been in pads for, not even 2 weeks? So give these young guys time. Give these young guys reps. They will pick up and adjust to the speed of the game. They will learn to get through their progressions. They will start to recognize fronts and coverages. And as the year goes on, the Georgia quarterback situation will get better and better and better. Okay? You got to trust Kirby on this hire. Everybody wanted a new offensive coordinator, and they went out and they got Todd Monken. This guy orchestrated the #1 passing offense in the NFL in 2018. Now, they got to be efficient. And you can't turn it over, because the only way that Georgia is going to lose 9 out of these 10 regular season games is if the offense turns it over. Because this defense is historically good. I mean, historically good. Now, they're going to have games where they got to score points. I'm not saying the defense is going to be perfect, but think about this. In the last 6 regular season games last year, Georgia didn't give up a play longer than 40 yards. Georgia did not give up a rushing touchdown last year until the 10th game of the season. All right? Think about that. Georgia did not give up a rushing touchdown until the 10th game of the season. Their defensive line is better this year. They did not give up a play longer than 40 yards the final 6 games of the regular season. Their secondary is better this year. Better. Deeper. Stronger. So there was only one team that scored 3 touchdowns in a game against Georgia last year. And Joe Burrow's not coming out that tunnel, folks. So the offense needs to be #1. First of all, more than anything else, efficient or proficient. Whatever you want to say, they've got to be proficient. A punt is not a bad thing when you have a defense like that. Now, when it's time to scheme more aggressively, when it's Alabama, and if Kirby feels like, you know what, I don't think our defense is going to hold them under 24, you will see a different game plan. That's what happened against LSU. Go back and look at the play chart. Georgia knew that they were in trouble. Kirby said that was the most difficult preparation he had ever had for any team in his career. He came out and said that. Best offense he'd ever seen. Kirby Smart said that last year. I was like, did you really just say that? Yeah, well, he meant it, okay? And he was right. If he's up against it this year, and that's why the game plan last year was so aggressive. Even though Cager was out, even though Swift couldn't do anything but catch a couple outside passes, You know, Swift was pretty much done after the Georgia Tech game. So you're missing Swift, you're missing Cager. Then Kyrus Jackson gets hurt in the first quarter. Dominic Blaylock goes down. Oh, by the way, Pickens is suspended for the first quarter. Georgia was up against it. Kirby knew he had to swing from the fences from the beginning. That's why they had that aggressive passing. If they're in that situation this year, you will see. I think, though, this year's scheme will be more aggressive because I believe that Monken can have an efficient, high-percentage offense that throws the ball. Instead of run, pass, it can be pass, run, pass. I think you can control the ball and control the clock and have those long handoffs, right? You talk about, you know, well, how can you have ball control with a pass game? How can you have time of possession? You throw those high percentage short passes in the flats, the quick outs. Maybe you set up a little diamond formation or a little triangle formation where you got those two receivers in front of the one in the back and the two go out and they kind of screen the defense and you throw that quick screen out there, right? There's a lot of things you can do that are essentially elongated handoffs to have a high percentage pass game. That is part of air raid offense. Air raid is also, though, intermediate throws. It's not just being able to go 30 downfield, throw the beautiful deep ball. JT Daniels does have a good deep ball. Go back and look at his film at USC. But the important throws is being able to throw it over that first line of defense, being able to layer it in there, make those touch passes, throw those catchable balls. High percentage passes, proper reads, not throwing into double coverage, knowing where the open guy will be. That's what Todd Monken's here for. He's been doing it a while. So I don't know how you feel about the quarterback situation all that after all that, but that's where that is. I want to talk to you now about Scott Cochran. Scott Cochran, excuse me, I got to take a hit of my green tea here. Actually, it's not green tea tonight. I got to be completely honest. It's vanilla macaroon tea. I know, it doesn't seem like very manly, but I'm a tea guy. It's healthy. It's good for you. So Kirby trots out Scott Cochran today. And if you haven't seen the video or if you hadn't read my column, you need to read my column on it. I spent about 4.5, 5 hours on that column. Connor wrote a really good story about Scott Cochran when Scott did the whole they're going to a funeral thing. You know what? I just realized I haven't shared this story. If you guys will share this story real quick, I need to share this to my Facebook page and get it out there to my friends. They always enjoy watching it, and they tell me they watch it on my page, and they're like, what are you going to talk about this week? So all my high school friends from Michigan have kind of adopted Georgia because for a while there wasn't going to be any high school football, so everybody up there was adopting Georgia, and I appreciate that, right? So let's see here. Let me get my share done, and then we're going to jump into Scott Cochran here. Talking college football on a Friday night. Headline, I see that Terrence Mathis joined us. Good that Terrence made it down from Detroit. We were talking about Dwan a little bit earlier, Terrence. Talking about Dwan's opportunity now. Talking about not sure what we're going to see out of this Georgia offense now that Jamie Newman has moved on. I know that Dwan had some red zone snaps last week Kirby told us about. I think Dwan's got to be more than a package guy, though. I think you got to have an offense that both Dwan and Carson Beck can run. As we said, we know that JT Daniels has the 2 years in the huddle and can fly the jet. Got to find out what Dwan and Carson Beck can do as well. Georgia's got to have a plan B. Terrence and I mentioned earlier, you know, this is going to take a team. It's going to take 3 quarterbacks to get through the season. One way, shape, or form. You're going to see all these guys play. Maybe 4. You're not put that. So Scott Cochran. So when the announcement came that there was going to be a coach available on Friday earlier this week, I thought, geez, I wonder if he's going to make Matt Luke available, right? Matt Luke has all this experience as a head coach behind the podium, and he's like the assistant head coach. And Kirby typically, for those you know that don't know, he typically lets his offensive coordinator talk once and his defensive coordinator talk once, and that's it. And then you don't hear from him again until the bowl game, and if they're at a New Year's Six bowl, the bowl game says we want coordinators, and Kirby complies. But he doesn't make those guys available. So when the announcement came that there's going to be a Georgia coach that speaks on Friday, I thought it was going to be Matt Luke. So I said, well, this is Kirby's guy. Him and Matt are buddies. They both played in the SEC at the same time. Matt was a walk-on lineman at Ole Miss the same years that Kirby was a safety at Georgia. Actually, Georgia Ole Miss played twice and split during Kirby's career. It was Scott Cochran, and I thought, well, here we go. This. Remember what a big story Scott Cochran was on February 26th? And then COVID-19 came on March 12th, and we just forgot about everything in the world, including Scott Cochran. At least we didn't forget about him, but it took away the sports headline. So here was Scott Cochran today, and I was like everybody else. I'm like, all right, let's see what's the big deal. You know, like, I'm going to be skeptical. I'm the grizzled veteran journalist that says, show me something, buddy, because I've heard of a million coaches that have energy. I hear it every year that every staff's got energy, and oh, he's an energizer, and oh, we can hype guys up. And I was prepared to dislike Scott Cochran, and I couldn't do it. He was so likable. He was confident. He was dynamic, and yet he was humble. And I said, now how is this happening? How can Scott Cochran be blowing up the room, full of confidence, full of charisma, and yet I sense that he's down to earth and humble? What an unusual and rare and valuable mix. And then later on he said, you know, my dad was military and my mom was a teacher. And I go, well, there you go. The dad, the military, anybody that's been in the military, and thank you all for your service that served, you motivate. Motivation is the number one thing you learn as a soldier. I learned it. Number one thing you learn as a soldier is motivation. How do you self-motivate? Because let me tell you something, man. If you ain't at that formation on time, somebody else is going to give you some other means of motivation. All right? If you don't hit that target 27 out of 30 times, you're going to get motivated. If you don't land properly at Fort Benning on the swing landing trainer, you just bought yourself another week in Columbus, Georgia. There's all sorts of methods for motivation in the military. So rather than let your drill sergeant or your black hat or your platoon sergeant motivate you, you learn quickly to motivate yourself. So with Scott having a military parent, of course he's a self-motivated guy. Now, the teacher. The mom's the teacher. Think about your teachers. Think about how well they communicate with everyone. How important was that? So Scott has this incredible blend of military dad and teacher mom, and here he is. Couldn't get enough of him. This guy was so much fun. One moment, he's got this devilish, funny cackle that just is infectious, right? I'm not going to say who, I don't want to out the person, but there was a TV person that said, what have you learned about special teams? And Scott said, if you're fast, speed kills, I'm going to get you on the field. And the person said, so if you're punter, so if you got somebody who runs a 4.2, does that mean they're going to punt? And Scott goes, yeah, they're going to punt. Come on, buddy, you got to do better than that. You know, and he just kind of let the guy know, don't give me that kind of question, right? But he laughed, and then he laughed out loud so that, yeah, he put the media guy in his place, but he laughed and let everybody know that it was okay. And you just think this is very disarming. And this is how you get along, and this is why he's likable. And Jake Camarda, the punter, talked about him earlier this week and said, hey, I'm around Coach Cochran every day, and you all see the crazy antics and the noise and the jumping up and down, but we see a different side. And the thing that Jake Camarda said twice is, he roots for us. He pulls for us. And that's called empowerment. And when you've got a coach that can ride your butt that hard, and yet you know that that coach loves you and wants you to succeed, that is the coaching magic. That is coaching magic, folks. I saw Bruce Pearl do it, right? I see Kirby Smart do it. Kirby Smart will wear you out on the practice. How many of you people saw, I want to eat? How many people remember that video where he's screaming at those guys? You come out here with blah, blah, blah up your tails, right? I want to eat. I'm hungry, right? And you go, oh my God, you know, what a freak out. He's all over you, man. You know, yeah, but the players love it because he gets the blood going. He pushes me. He calls me out. And I know at the end of the day, he still loves me. When you've got a coach that can light you up like that, that can get in your grill and go down your throat, and you're good with it, you want him to piss you off so that you can get fired up. Remember, like lifting weights, like the dudes in here that lift know what I'm talking about. You're on the bench, right? And the guy's yelling down at you, come on, you suck, you know, and you're like, ah, you know, that's what you want. You need that motivation. You need somebody that can move the needle. And Scott Cochran, folks, this cat moves the needle, like Kirby moves the needle, like Matt Luke moves the needle, like Del McGee moves. They have got an incredible staff over there. I'm telling you. Charlton Warren moves the needle. These guys are so disciplined. Every little detail. I remember Charlton Warren getting on Tyreek the Freak last year. Stokes had mentioned, we'd all ask, well, when are we going to see Tyreek Stevenson do anything? When are we going to see? And he said, look, you know, and Eric Stokes said, you know, some of these young guys, they just got to learn about film study. And it was a roundabout way of saying that Tyreek, who had probably always relied on these incredible gifts that he has, needed to learn to study up a little bit more. And I was out there watching practice. And Tyreek was being like the other guy because the DBs take turns. Sometimes they're the DB, they're the one in training, and then the other DB plays receiver so that he can practice technique. And Charlton Warren said to Tyreek Stevenson, hey, you're not giving me your best, Tyreek Stevenson. I need a better look from you. So even when you're not the guy that's doing the drill, right, you need to be the guy that's playing scout team and give them 100, okay? Because that's what it takes at Georgia. It's not for everyone. That's the other thing I think people need to realize. Just because someone doesn't work out at Georgia, it's not an implication on the program. All right? It can be as simple as this person is not cut out for either this offense or this environment. And everybody's got to do what's best for them. Right? Some people say to me, oh, Mike, look at this. You covered Auburn, and then you covered Alabama, and you covered Tennessee, and then you went and did Michigan State, and then you had Tennessee. Why you go around it? Because I got better jobs, right? When I covered Auburn, I was at a 30,000 circulation paper, and I wanted to work in Mobile. That was my career goal, and then I got to go to the Mobile Register and cover Alabama, and I loved it. And but it was a 4-hour drive back and forth. So when Knoxville called and said, hey, we want to give you more money, and you get to live in the same town of the team you cover, okay, I'm doing it, right? And then I was there 14 years. Covered national championship team, covered Bruce Pro's great. But then the paper, you know, things start happening. Newspapers start going down. And I get this opportunity to go to a digital entity and learn how to do digital stuff like we're doing right here, cutting edge stuff, and cover my alma mater, Michigan State. And my son's moving with me. And he gets to go to high school, and I'm jumping through. So I'm up there for 4 years. Love it. Got a radio show, TV show. And then I get a call from Atlanta. My old buddy Michael Carvel, he does the production for all these Dog Nation shows. He says, dude, we're starting this SEC country thing up. Come on down. I'm all in, right? Love Cox Enterprises, right? And then SEC country closes down. Not doing SEC country anymore. There is no more Tennessee job. But we got a Georgia job. Are you kidding me? A Georgia job? I can cover Georgia for Cox Enterprises and live in Athens? I'm there. This is a championship program, man. There's things happening. There's news. Look at this fan base. Guys, it's Friday night. We're talking football. The game is still 3 weeks away. We got the quarterback's dad in the room with us checking it out. We got some fans that are so passionate, that are so hungry to win. My message tonight, though, is don't tear each other down so much. Don't get divided over this quarterback thing. Nobody wants that, okay? Terrence is in the room now. He'll tell you. He's going to pull for JT. He's going to pull for Carson, just like he's pulling for Dwan. You know, Daniel's dad, Beck's dad, they're all in it together. They want to win a championship, okay? Don't get divided. Georgia fans do not need to divide. Other fan bases are going to do their best to divide you. They're going to tell you that the best quarterback just walked out the door. They're going to tell you that Kirby Smart doesn't know how to manage quarterbacks. They're going to tell you that Scott Cochran was outdated and Nick Saban didn't want to keep him anyway. Don't buy it. You got a championship opportunity this season. Now things need to go right. Things need to fall into place. There's a lot of newness on this offense. It's got to come together really fast. Having a championship defense gives you a little bit of a margin for error. Okay, I'm going to be honest with you. There's no way Arkansas is going to beat you. Auburn probably doesn't have the guns. Tennessee, I don't know if they're as good as last year, but I think it's close. But Alabama is losable. And I'm going to tell you, if you get beat up enough, if you go to Kentucky beat up, if you go to Kentucky with some doubt and Kentucky's off to a good start, that could be a close game. I don't think Kentucky can beat you, but I think it can be a close game. You have a bye week, Halloween, and then you play Florida in Jacksonville. All right? A lot of things have to go right for Georgia to win a national championship. That's where this program is at. 8 wins, 10 wins. For some teams, great season. Georgia fans, understand that you've reached a point now where championships are what this program is playing for. National championships. There's zero margin for error. So the fan base can't get divided. The team is not divided. I'm going to tell you that right now. That football team is not divided over this. Okay? The fans don't need to divide. The parents will not divide. There's some really good parents out there. Okay? The LeCount family, you know, Richard's kind of the mayor and kind of the leader of this team. Let me tell you, his family, his mother, his father, and Terrence can attest to this. When you got a family like the LeCount family out there, they hold the team together. And I think that Terrence and I think the Beck family and I think the Daniels family, I think you're going to see some unity from that quarterback room. They're all in it together. They can all learn from one another. They all have different strengths. And that's where George is at right now. So I'm going to take a look and see if you all have any questions for me. I talked about Scott Cochran. Really encourage you to make sure that you watch that video or that you read that column I did on Scott. He's Georgia's secret weapon. The reason he was talking today is Kirby wants him in front of recruits. This is a change from Kirby, but he recognizes now with Zoom that a lot of these kids don't know who the assistants are. This is how he puts them out in front of them. And let me tell you, Scott Cochran is an amazing interview. I am blown away. I don't know how Nick Saban let Scott Cochran get away. I could not have been more impressed with Scott Cochran. That he was everything that he was supposed to be, and yet he was the humility. Tonight, notice no workout shirt. Getting a little dressy. We're in season now, so I'm getting a little dressy. This is a pressed box shirt I bought just for the season. Season's a few weeks away. We may not travel, so I'm going to wear it for you. You get my game attire. I love this shirt. What do we got here, folks? I see Terrence says the team. You know it. Is the scrimmage on TV Andrew Rogers? No, but there will be boosters there, I believe. I think it'll be open. Houston Evans, you're fired up. I'm fired up because this is a great program. This is an exciting time for Georgia football, and I think everybody needs to feel good about that. I think everybody needs to feel good about this football team and how hard these kids have worked. Stop tearing each other down. Stop tearing your own players down because you like one guy. Don't do that. Empowerment, right? Talk about what each guy does well. I look at these guys like superheroes. They all have different powers, and they can all do different things. And it's up to Todd Monken to figure out which superhero needs to be on the field to exploit that defensive weakness. You got to trust your coaching staff. Stop doubting your coaching staff. You're the only SEC program that's finished in the SEC top 7 the last 3 consecutive years. That's played in 3 straight New Year's Six bowls. Okay? It's an amazing accomplishment for Georgia. Feel good about that. Philip Jordan, a high 4 in the near future. I don't know what that means, but Philip, you said it, so that's probably pretty funny. Folks, I got to tell you, I've had a tough week. You guys remember what happened with Mason last week? Disappointing. I'm still grieving Mason. I had the worst toothache in history last week. I had to have an emergency root canal. That was the most pain ever. 6 shots, they drill in, and then they got to give you a shot in the middle of the tooth to get to the nerve. And then 2 more days of pain, and then my tooth was extracted with pliers. They reach in your mouth with pliers and move your tooth around and pull it out. And I'm going to tell you what, that hurt my pride. And I said, I mean, it's the back tooth, but there's a part of me, I feel bad. And thank you, Friday Night Mike show. And thank you guys for picking me up. because it's been a tough week. That stuff was a bummer. That's a bummer. One of my best friends lost his dad at 80 years old, COVID related. That stuff's real, right? We're all having to be careful. Let's all be safe. Let's all be unified. You know, I go on Georgia pages, and you know, I want to see everybody on the same page getting excited about the season. And again, let's not be divisive. If you've got a question for somebody, if you've got a debate, send them a message. Don't put anybody on blast. This is not the time for that. You know, Georgia last week had a march. Speaking of which, I don't know if you guys got to see that, but Kirby marched across campus with the players to the hall where the first ever African-American student enrolled in 1961. That was a great lesson. His son spoke. I was so impressed by that. It was a great sign of unity. Now we're seeing the players. They've got this thing, oh gosh, what's it called? The school program. I need to find this press release. Forgive me for not knowing this off the top of my head. I should know this off the top of my head. I want to find this for you because this is important. Okay, you've got the Strategic Alliance with Todd Gurley. And then, oh man, I hate to hold you guys up on this stuff. Oh, I get so many of these doggone emails, and now I can't find the, oh, this is driving me nuts. They're helping Athens schools out. And again, forgive me for not having that written down in my notes. I wasn't sure how I was going to do it. I saw Kirby Smart is on the Dodd watch list for Coach of the Year. Here it is. Dogs for Pups program. University of Georgia's kicked off an initiative called Dogs for Pups, pledging to raise money for Wi-Fi hotspots for Clark County students. After the idea arose from a recent team meeting. You want to know what Georgia leadership is doing, the player leadership? This is what they're doing. They're helping out in the community. This is what that leadership council that Jamari Sellier was telling you about. These guys have got some ideas. Kirby told us last week that they had 16 or 17 different ideas that they wanted to do. The March Across Campus was the first. The Dogs for Pup, helping with the internet for the school students in Athens, because not everybody has internet, for the kids that are learning at home. What a great initiative. I've already heard some boosters tell me they're going to donate to that. These Georgia football players, some real quality people, some great leadership. You know, here's my question, and I don't know. They did the march in the black jerseys. Do we think we'll see the black jerseys maybe? I mean, I kind of wonder, wouldn't that be cool if that was part of a bigger initiative or plan? I don't know what's going to happen, but seeing some great things happen in Georgia football. That's why I say I want everybody to stay on the positive. It's going to be a lot of fun. Mike Gay says Dan Mullins enters the transfer portal. You guys are cracking me up. Listen, I want to get off of here. Centel told me that he may do a live update on Brock Vandergrift tonight. Didn't promise it, but he said he might. So if you'll do me the favor, share this post around. Always appreciate it. Last week, guys, we had 91,000 views on this program. That's you all doing that, okay? I just get on here and talk about football. The Georgia fans, the passion, the way you share this to all these different websites, that's what gets the viewpoints. They just see some guy talking with well, I don't even have my dog here anymore, but they just see some guy talking Georgia football. So many people love Georgia football. Love the compliments on my shirt. It was going to be my opening game shirt for the Monday Night Virginia game, but now instead it's my Friday Night Mike shirt on the first Friday in September. Tomorrow, Kirby Smart is going to talk to the media after the scrimmage around 12:30. Look on Dog Nation. Look on that website, okay, because there's going to be news about what Kirby says. What I want to see tomorrow, 3 things off the top of my head. 1, what does the new offense look like? No Jamie Newman. What are they going to do with Dwan, and what are they going to do with Carson tomorrow? That's what I want to know. JT's going to keep being JT. Number 1 thing I want to know. Number 2, where are the playmakers? Who are the playmakers? I know about George Pickens. Is Jermaine Burton going to step up? Is Demetrius Robertson going to step up? Are we going to hear more about Darnell Washington or Trey McKitty? What about in the backfield? Zamir White, James Cook. Last week their runs were the result of broken assignments, Kirby said. What are they going to do this week? And number 3, I want a special teams update. I want to know what's going on. Scott Cochran has got me fired up about Georgia's special teams. I want to know who the kicker is. I know Kamara is the punter. I want to know who the return guys is. Cochran was talking about Cook and Zamir being in special teams. Not sure if he wanted them to cover punts and kicks or return them. So anything goes. So I can't wait to report all that. I want you all to have a safe weekend, a good night, and show some unity in the Georgia fan base, right? Everybody's in this together. And it's going to be a fascinating year. So, again, thanks for joining me tonight. Everybody, have a wonderful weekend.